Michael Jackson was the most rehearsed man in the history of popular music. By the time you saw him on a stage, he had already done that move 10,000 times, alone, in a mirror, before sunrise, with no one watching. His talent was not an accident. It was a decision he made at 5 years old and kept every single day for the next 40 years. This video is not about the music. It is about what you can steal from the man who made it. 15 principles of discipline that made him untouchable on a stage and translate to any work you actually care about. The Stoics would have recognized every one of them. Seneca wrote about practice. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the mask a man wears in public. Epictetus wrote about the cost of excellence. They would have recognized Michael. One warning, the discipline that made him great was also what isolated him. Every chapter gives you both sides. What to take, what to refuse. This is how to become like Michael Jackson without becoming him. The move was called the backslide. Michael practiced it alone in his bedroom mirror for months before he showed it to anyone. Feet gliding, body still. He ran old tape of a dancer named Jeffrey Daniel doing something close to it, watched it for hours, then went back to the mirror. When he walked out on the Motown 25 stage in March of 1983, he did that move for 6 seconds. 6 seconds of work the world will never stop watching. Behind it were 10,000 repetitions, no camera ever recorded. Epictetus taught this plainly. He said no great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. There must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. Most men pick 5 things and practice none of them. They rotate, they sample, they quit the week before the discipline would have started paying them. They confuse motion with practice. Michael did the opposite. One move, repeated past understanding, past the point where his body already knew it, until the move was not something he did. It was something his body was. Here's what to steal. Pick one thing this month. 1. A sentence you want to say cleanly. A small motion in your craft. Repeat it until repetition stops feeling like work and starts feeling like breathing. Here is where it goes wrong. If the one thing becomes the whole man, the man disappears into the thing. A move practiced 1,000 times makes a master. A move practiced 10,000 times by a man with no interior life makes a shell with a perfect stage presence. That is the first lesson. Master one move 1,000 times, but stay awake for the moment the move starts practicing you. Before every show, he did the same thing, stretching on a studio floor for an hour, vocal warm-ups for 45 minutes while the dancers were still tying their shoes, breath drills where he would hold a note on the exhale until his ribs shook. On the 1987 tour through Japan, dancers half his age could not keep up with the warm-up. He treated his body the way a violinist treats a violin, as the instrument, not as the thing that happened to hold the instrument. Seneca wrote to Lucilius, "The mind must be given rest." But the body, he wrote, is the workshop of the soul. A neglected workshop produces neglected work. Michael trained like an athlete his whole career. Dance drills every morning, breath control, vocal warm-ups that lasted an hour before anyone else walked into the room. He was running uphill in the dark while his peers were still asleep. Most men treat their body like a container to ship their brain around in. They let it soften, they feed it whatever is convenient, they sleep whenever the phone lets them, and then they wonder why their voice has no force and their presence has no weight. The body is not separate from the work, it is the work. A man who cannot breathe cannot speak. A man whose face is puffy at 10 in the morning cannot hold a stage at 10 at night. Here is what to steal. Pick one physical discipline that is not optional. A walk, a set of push-ups, 10 minutes of stretching, 3 liters of water. Treat the body like it is the workshop, because it is. Here is where it goes wrong. The body can become the whole project. The mirror can replace the soul. You end up worshiping the instrument and forgetting what it was for. That is the second lesson. Train the body as your instrument. But remember, the instrument is not the song. 5 in the morning, Westlake Studios, Los Angeles. The sun is not up yet. Quincy Jones walks in, coffee in hand, to find Michael already in the booth, headphones on, running the same vocal for the 6th take. He has been there since 4. This was a pattern, not an accident. He was in the studio before the sun. He left after it moved to the other side of the sky, for months at a time. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations before dawn. He said at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was made for? Michael was made for the studio, and he paid the dawn for it. But listen, the hours had a price. This is the first time in the video we're going to name it out loud. 3 hours of sleep for a season is preparation. 3 hours of sleep for a decade is erosion. You cannot outrun biology. The body keeps a ledger, and the ledger is always paid. The men who saw him up close in those years describe a man burning something he could not replace. Most men have the opposite problem. They sleep 8 hours and produce 3 hours of work. They wake to a phone. They lose the first 2 hours of the day to other people's agendas. Here is what to steal. Find 1 hour that belongs to you. Before anyone calls you, before any inbox opens, use it for the work you would not otherwise make time for. The hour before the world is awake is the only hour that is truly yours. Here is where it goes wrong. Do not mistake the dawn for the drug. A man who is proud of sleeping 4 hours is bragging about a wound. That is the third lesson. Wake before the world, but do not use the hours to run from yourself. Inside his house, there was a wall of VHS tapes. Fred Astaire in top hat. He would watch a single Astaire number 3 times in an afternoon, run it backwards, freeze it frame by frame. At 7 years old, he told an interviewer that James Brown was the greatest who ever lived. He said it the way a scholar names his master. When he met Fred Astaire for the first time, Astaire told him, "You're a hell of a mover." Michael cried, because the man on the tape had seen him back. Aristotle wrote that we become what we repeatedly do. But before he wrote that, he wrote something more important. The first task of a man who wants to be excellent is to find an example of excellence and study it. Not copy it, study it. Michael did not invent the moonwalk. Jeffrey Daniel was doing a version of it on Soul Train in 1982. Michael studied it, refined it, made it his own. Most men try to invent before they have studied. They skip the library and go straight to the stage. The work they produce has no roots. It sounds like everyone and like no one. A man who has studied the masters of his craft can steal in broad daylight and call it influence. A man who has not studied them can only imitate the surface of things he does not understand. Here's what to steal. Pick 3 masters of the thing you are trying to do. Not contemporaries, masters. Study 1 a month. Read them, watch them. Write what they did well and what you can use. Here is where it goes wrong. Study becomes hiding. Some men read about mastery for 20 years and never perform. The point of studying the masters is to eventually stand in a room they no longer can and do what you were built to do. That is the 4th lesson. Study your craft's history obsessively. Then close the book and become part of it. Los Angeles, June 2009. The Staples Center floor. A 50-year-old man in sunglasses and a black jacket stands center stage, calling corrections on a song he has already performed 1,000 times. Hit the mark on the 8. The dancers nod. He runs it again. The This Is It rehearsal footage is the most honest record we have of what mastery costs at the end of a career. He is still going over it, still adjusting, still sweating for a move the world had already seen. Because the law of the stage is simple. The only thing an audience is allowed to see is effortlessness. And effortlessness is the surface of a mountain of rehearsal that no one is ever shown. Seneca wrote to Lucilius, "The master who is prepared in private will walk onto the public floor with nothing left to fear. The man who is not prepared will be taught by his audience, and the lesson will be public." Most men approach performance the wrong way around. They want the moment, the applause, the gold jacket at the end of the hall. But they resent the 1,200 hours in an empty room that are the only real currency the stage accepts. They show up unprepared and call it authenticity. The audience is never fooled. The audience can smell the difference inside the first 6 seconds. Here's what to steal. Over-prepare for things no one would think need preparing. The email to the senior person, the first 90 seconds of the meeting, the opening line of the conversation you have been avoiding. Rehearse until the thing stops sounding rehearsed, then rehearse twice more. Here is where it goes wrong. Rehearsal is a tool, not a life. The man who rehearses everything, who cannot speak without preparing the sentence first, has no improvisation left in him. That is the fifth lesson. Rehearse until it looks effortless, but leave a small door open for the one beat you did not plan. 3 a.m. at Westlake Studios. Michael and Quincy Jones are alone in the control room. No assistants, no label people, no entourage, just the two of them and a tape reel rolling. The silence between them is the sound of a trust that took years to build. The people who actually got close to Michael could fit in one small room. A few family members, Quincy, a few dancers, Bill Bray, his security chief for 30 years. The list is shockingly short for a man that famous. Everyone else was kept at the edge, polite, gracious, but at the edge. Marcus Aurelius wrote it plainly. Be careful with those you let close. Choose the ones who are sober, capable, and who will make you better. Do not let the loud and the needy into the inner rooms of your life. Most men do the reverse. They run large, loose circles, dozens of acquaintances, none of whom know them. Parties full of people who would not recognize their real voice if they used it. A small inner circle is not coldness. It is a structural choice. A man can only be truly known by 4 or 5 people in his life. But here is where we slow down, because the circle can get too small. It can go from protection to isolation. The same wall that keeps the loud out can keep the correction out. A circle so tight that no one can tell you the truth becomes a cage. And a cage is where a man stops growing because there is no friction. The sources close to Michael describe, over the years, a circle that shrank until almost no voices were left who could push back on him. That is the warning. Keep the inner ring small, but keep at least 2 people in it who will tell you when you are wrong. Here is what to steal. List the 10 people you spend the most time with. Ask which ones know what you actually believe and which ones just know what you do. Invest in the first group. Here is where it goes wrong. A ring of 2 people who worship you is not a circle, it is a mirror. That is the 6th lesson. Keep your inner circle small, but keep it sharp enough to cut you. A dressing room before a show. The press line is 20 feet down the hall. He does not take questions. He does not make a statement. The security chief knocks twice. Michael stands up, adjusts the glove, walks past every microphone without a word and goes to the stage. He let the work do the talking. A new album dropped. A new video aired. A new show sold out. And between those events, mostly silence. Cato the Younger, the Roman senator the Stoics revered, had a rule about speech. A sentence should pay rent. If it did not pay rent, he did not say it. He was not shy. He was one of the most respected speakers in the Roman Senate. But he only spoke when a sentence had earned its place in the air. Seneca called this gravitas, weight, the quality that comes from a man who has made himself expensive with his words. When he speaks, the room stops. Most men have no gravitas because they speak all the time. They post, they comment, they explain, they justify. They commentate on their own lives like a second-rate sportscaster. Every sentence they say makes the next one cheaper. Michael built gravitas on an industrial scale. He made himself expensive. Every appearance felt like an event because appearances were rare. Here is what to steal. For 1 week, do not explain yourself. Let your decisions stand without a justification. Let your silence mean yes or no and let people read it. Watch what happens to the weight of your words. Here is where it goes wrong. Silence can become a wall. A man who speaks only through his work can end up unable to speak at all. The art is supposed to be a voice, not a replacement for having one. That is the 7th lesson. Let your work speak first, but keep the man underneath able to use his own mouth. Quick pause. If this video is changing how you see yourself, subscribe. We are building something here. Ancient philosophy, real men, studied honestly, principles you can actually use. And if you want daily Stoic wisdom in your pocket, download the Becoming Stoic app, free, link in the description. Now back to it. Line up the album covers in order. Off the Wall in 1979, Thriller in 1982, Bad in 1987, Dangerous in 1991. 4 different men looking back from 4 different sleeves, a different posture, a different jacket, a different face. Inside a single decade, 4 complete identities, each one unrecognizable from the last. Each one was not just a new album, it was a new version of the man, a new silhouette, a new sound, a new way of moving on a stage. He did not let his audience get comfortable. He did not let himself get comfortable. Every 3 or 4 years, he killed the man he had been and built a new one. Marcus Aurelius kept coming back to one idea. There is nothing nature loves so well as to change existing forms and make new ones like them. A man who refuses to change his form gets eaten by the change that is coming anyway. A man who leads the change of his own form is always one step ahead of the audience that would replace him. Most men pick an identity at 25 and wear it for the rest of their lives. The haircut from college, the taste in music from the first breakup. They do not reinvent, they calcify. And then they are surprised to find at 50 that the world has moved on. Michael ran the opposite experiment. He treated his identity as a costume that could be replaced. He was willing to be unrecognizable to the version of himself from 5 years earlier. Here is what to steal. Every 3 or 4 years, deliberately change one non-trivial thing about how you present to the world. The way you write, the way you dress, the room you work in. Do not wait for life to force the reinvention. Lead it. Here is where it goes wrong. Reinvention without a stable core is just drift. If there is no continuous man underneath the changing forms, you are not reinventing, you are erasing. Change the silhouette, keep the spine. That is the 8th lesson. Reinvent yourself every era. But make sure there is a man who remembers his own name across the costumes. August 1985. A lawyer walks into a conference room with a check for $47.5 million. On the other side of the table, the ATV music catalog changes hands. Inside that catalog, the publishing rights to most of the Beatles' songs. Yesterday, Let It Be, Come Together, Hey Jude. Paul McCartney finds out the next morning by phone. Paul had advised him years earlier. The real money in this business is in owning the songs. Michael listened, and he moved. Over the next 2 decades, that catalog became one of the most valuable music publishing assets on earth. Seneca wrote to Lucilius about this principle. No man is free who is the slave of another's ownership. He was talking about Roman patronage, but the sentence carries across 2,000 years. The man who rents his work out forever owns nothing at the end. The man who builds equity, however small, owns a ladder. Most men are renters. They trade hours for dollars. They build someone else's company for 10 years and end up with a pension and a plaque. They do not notice that every unit of value they create belongs to someone whose name is not theirs. Michael ran the other experiment. At an age when most artists were happy to be on the charts, he was buying the pipes that carried other people's charts. Here's what to steal. Whatever your work is, ask where the ownership lives. If it lives with your employer, fine, for a season. But build one small thing that is yours, a project, a piece of writing, a skill someone cannot fire you away from. Build the first room of a house you own. Here's where it goes wrong. Ownership for its own sake is greed. The catalog was a tool. If it becomes the identity, the man becomes a balance sheet. That is the 9th lesson. Own your catalog, but do not confuse the catalog with the life. Pasadena Civic Auditorium, March 25th, 1983. The Motown 25 anniversary special. Michael walks out in a black jacket and a single white glove. Nobody in the audience knows what is coming. His brothers have just left the stage. He looks smaller than the man about to detonate the room. Then Billie Jean starts, and he does the moonwalk, the first time the world sees it. 6 seconds. Millions watching live. The next morning, every television in America is a loop of that one slide. Here's the part most people miss. He had barely been seen solo for 5 years. The industry thought of him as a Jackson, part of a group, a child star getting older. He had been underestimated, quietly, for a long time. And then, in 6 seconds, he rearranged what the world thought was possible. Sun Tzu wrote the line every strategist since has tried to steal. Appear weak when you are strong. He was writing about the battlefield, but the stage is a battlefield with better lights. Most men cannot resist showing their hand. The second they start training, they post it. The second they get a small win, they announce it. They trade the compounding silence of underestimation for the cheap dopamine of early credit. Michael did the opposite. He disappeared. He trained in private. He built a weapon in a room no one was watching. Then he walked into the biggest stage of the decade and fired it once. Here's what to steal. The next real move you want to make, do not announce it. Do not post your goal. Disappear into the work, come back with something finished, and let the world decide what it thinks of a thing that is already real. Here's where it goes wrong. Disappearance is a tactic, not a personality. The man who is always hidden, always about to return, becomes untouchable in a way that stops being strategy and starts being loneliness. That is the 10th lesson. Let them underestimate you, but come back out when the work is done. The glove goes on first, then the fedora, then the black jacket with the red zippers. Backstage, the man in the mirror is quiet, polite, a little shy. Then the music starts up in the corridor. The voice changes, the posture changes. By the time he hits the lip of the stage, there are two men inside one body, and only one of them is working tonight. The single white glove, the fedora, the high water pants, the black jacket with the red zippers, the sequined socks. These were not outfits, they were armor. Michael created a silhouette so specific that a 10-year-old could draw him from memory in 3 strokes. And once he was on the stage in that silhouette, he became something different from the man who wore it. The man underneath could be tired, could be sad, could be frightened. The performer in the black jacket with the glove never was. Epictetus wrote it as clearly as anyone ever has. Remember that you are an actor in a drama of such sort as the author chooses. If short, then in a short one. If long, in a long one. The role is not the man. The man is the one who chooses how to play the role. The glove is the role. It is not the man. Most men do not understand the difference between the performer and the person. They show up to work as their whole self. Tired, confused, unpolished. They let the room see the inside of them, and then they wonder why the room has no respect. Or they swing the other way. They become the mask. They start believing their own silhouette. And when the costume is off, there is no one home. Michael walked the blade between those two eras for decades. The performer was immaculate, the man was real. For a long time he kept them separate, and both were safe. Here is what to steal. Build your armor deliberately. Pick a uniform for the room where you go to perform. Pick a specific way of speaking that is yours on the stage. Make the public version of yourself a distinct thing, so the private version is protected. Here's where it goes wrong. The armor is meant to protect the man. If it replaces him, there is no one left to protect. The glove becomes the hand. The hand forgets it was ever a hand. That is the 11th lesson. Protect the performance from the performer, and protect the performer from the performance. December 2nd, 1983. The premiere of the Thriller music video, 14 minutes long, horror makeup, a werewolf sequence, a zombie dance break, Vincent Price voiceover over a funk beat. It broke every rule pop had written for itself. But to earn the right to break those rules, Michael had already spent 15 years inside them. By the time he was 12, he had performed at the Apollo, recorded 4 #1 singles with the Jackson 5, opened for Diana Ross, studied James Brown at close range. He had earned, before he was old enough to drive, a command of the form that most adults in the industry would never reach. Only then did he start bending the rules. The beat structure of Off the Wall, the cinematic video for Thriller, the stage mechanics of the Bad Tour. These were rule breaks, but they came after a decade of earning the form they were breaking. Aristotle called this phronesis, practical wisdom. A young man can recite principles, but wisdom comes from the combination of principle and long practice. That combination, earned over years, is what allows a man to break a rule correctly. Most men try to skip this. They read a book about creativity. They attack the rules of their craft before they have mastered them. The work they produce is not revolutionary. It is just sloppy. A man who breaks a rule he has never mastered is not innovating. He is confessing that he could not meet the standard. Michael earned the right to break the form. The years inside the Jackson 5 were not a warm-up. They were the apprenticeship that made the innovation trustworthy when it arrived. Here is what to steal. Before you break a rule in your field, ask if you have mastered the rule as it stands. Can you do the standard version excellently? If you cannot, you are not allowed to innovate yet. Go back and earn it. Here is where it goes wrong. Earning the form is not a prison. Some men earn the form and then stay there forever, too afraid to break it. Master the rules, then break them, on purpose in daylight. That is the 12th lesson. Break the rules only after you master them. but when you have mastered them, break them without apologizing. Picture an empty dressing room after a show. The crowd is gone. The lights are down. The glove is on the counter. The man in the chair is still in full makeup. He sits for a long time, looking at nothing. Somewhere down the hallway, a crew member laughs. He does not turn toward the sound. There is no home to go to, just the next hotel, the next stage, the next version of the silhouette. This is the chapter the whole video has been walking toward. Michael Jackson became one of the most recognized human beings in the history of the species. Not famous, not popular, recognized, a face in every city on earth, a silhouette a child could draw in every language. And the cost of that recognition was a man who, over the years, became harder and harder to find underneath it. Listen carefully. This is not about any specific event. This is about a psychological trap the performer-performance gap sets for anyone who gets close to this kind of mastery. When you build a performer that is flawless, the performer starts eating the person, slowly. At first, the armor is protective, then it is preferred. Then the armor is the only place where the man is comfortable, because it is the only place he has spent any time. The rehearsal room saves the performer and starves the child. The child prodigy has a particular version of this problem. He was on stage before he had an interior life. The stage formed while he was still forming. A man who was a performer before he was a person spends the rest of his life trying to reverse engineer a human being out of an act. Many never succeed. There's a thing he said to interviewers across the years, the Peter Pan thing, the wish that he could stay a child forever. People laughed at it. Most of them missed what he was actually saying. He was saying, the part of me that never got to be a person is still waiting to be one. And the stage will not give that part back. The armor will not give that part back. The applause will not give that part back. Marcus Aurelius wrote about what he called the inner citadel, the quiet, walled place inside a man no one else is allowed into without his permission. He taught it as a refuge, the last ground that cannot be taken from you. But he also warned in the same meditations that a citadel can become a prison. If you retreat there and never leave, if you do not tend the inner man who lives there, the citadel stops being a refuge. It becomes a chamber where the man starves in private while the flags fly on the walls. That is the risk of the performer-performance gap at Michael's scale. The citadel became the whole country. The country became the costume. And the man who was supposed to live in it was, by the end, a guest in his own life. Feel the weight of this. The discipline is real, the craft is real, the mastery is real, and it is not enough. If there is no one home under the performance, every chapter in this video builds a ghost wearing armor. Here's the practice. Once a week, sit for 30 minutes with no performance. No phone, no music, no audience. Ask the question Marcus would have asked. Who is the man inside this discipline? If the answer is hard to find, that is the work. Feed him, name him. Do not let him starve on your own stage. That is the 13th lesson. Do not lose the man underneath. Every principle before this one is a knife. This is the rule about whose hand it is in. The sunglasses go on in the car, the hat goes lower. Years later, it will be a surgical mask in public, long before the rest of the world ever wore one. Each piece of the disguise is small. Each piece is defensible. Taken together, across 40 years, they add up to a face that can no longer appear without them. This is a thing the Stoics knew, and almost no one in the modern world is taught. A role played long enough becomes a groove in the nervous system. A gesture rehearsed 10,000 times is no longer a gesture. It is a reflex. A mask worn for an era does not lift cleanly when the era ends. It takes part of the face with it. This is the price of eras as identity. Michael wore an era as a costume and then replaced it with another. Thriller Michael, Bad Michael, Dangerous Michael. Each one was a full suit of armor. Each one cost him something to put on and something to take off. And some of what each era took, it did not give back. Seneca wrote to Lucilius one of the hardest sentences in the letters. We grow into the masks we wear for too long. Be careful which face you choose, because you will wear it after you are done with it. Most men are never tested on this. They do not wear anything that costs enough to cut into them. The price they pay is smaller because the stakes they played for were smaller. Michael played at the highest stake any performer has ever played at. The mask, across 4 decades, became part of the shape of the man. By the late years, you can see it. The silhouette is no longer a costume he picks. It is just his outline. The price of the mask is that after enough years, the mask is the face. Here's what to steal. Whatever role you are playing for a season, remember it has a half-life. Ask yourself, every year, is this still a costume I can take off? If the answer is getting harder, slow down. Spend more time in the private face. Here's where it goes wrong. You can get romantic about the price. You can start to think the wearing of the mask is itself a virtue. It is not. It is a debt. All men pay. That is the 14th lesson. Accept the price of the mask, and do not wear it a day longer than the work requires. Walk into the archive room. Vocal isolations from the Thriller sessions in 1982. Rehearsal tapes Quincy Jones kept in storage. Session reels with scratch takes nobody outside the building has ever heard. The work is cataloged, preserved, sitting on shelves. It will be there long after every person who made it has walked out of the room. That is what outlasting looks like up close. Not a headline, a shelf. Marcus Aurelius, in his final book, wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." He also wrote, "The span of a man's life is short, but the work, rightly done, outlasts him." The work is still here. The catalog still plays in every country. The moves are still copied by dancers who were not born when they were invented. The silhouette still sells in a store window. The songs still show up at weddings and quiet nights when someone needs to feel something. The work is unkillable. This is the Stoic payoff and the Stoic warning in the same breath. The man is not the work. The work can outlast the man, but only if the work was made with enough integrity in the first place to be worth surviving. Most men will not leave anything. Their whole output will vanish inside 6 months of their last day at the office. Not because they were not busy, but because they spent their discipline on things that were already perishable. Here is what to steal. Ask of the work you spend your days on, is any of it built to last? If the answer is no, keep doing the job, but start a second project on the side that might survive you. Write the book, build the company, train the apprentice. Leave something that has your fingerprints on it and can keep moving when you cannot. Here is where it goes wrong. Do not let the legacy eat the present. Build for the long shadow, but live in the current light. That is the 15th lesson. Let the legacy outlast the man, and make sure the man gets to live a life before it does. Here's what no one tells you about becoming like Michael Jackson. The discipline was stealable. All 15 laws are things a man can practice in his own life. The repetition, the body as instrument, the dawn hours, the study of masters, the rehearsal, the closed circle, the working silence, the reinvention, the ownership, the underestimation, the armor, the mastery before innovation, the private reckoning, the accepted price, the legacy. Every one of them is a knife you can pick up. But the same discipline that built the performer is what hollowed out the man. The rehearsal room saved him on stage, and it starved the child. The armor protected the act, and it made the person inside harder and harder to find. You do not want to be Michael. You want to build a man who can train like Michael and still come home at night, who can rehearse like Michael and still eat dinner with people who know his real name. That is the real Stoic work, not the moonwalk, the homecoming. If this changed something in how you see yourself, subscribe. Download the Becoming Stoic app, free, link in the description. Now close this video and go build a man who can master a craft and still be a person when the stage is dark.